Let's get the calls here. Coming up on the third hour, let's see. Peter calling in from Boston. You're on the Wilkow Majority. Hello.
Andrew, thanks for taking my call. I'm an avid listener. I agree with you most of the times, and I only call you when I don't agree with you. Hey, earlier you mentioned about John Kerry and the richest Democrats, and what I'm having a hard time understanding is what is more hypocritical, the rich man who says to keep my taxes low, or the wealthy man who says it's okay to raise my taxes? Which is more hypocritical? I don't understand.
That is too simple a paradigm for this. It's this chastising lecture that we get from these people as people who have massive amounts of wealth, who are setting the bar at 250, who are looking at people who are trying. Okay? Let me ask you this, and I'll try to answer your question because your paradigm is different than what I'm getting at. Am I wrong if I want to have $188.37 million? If I aspire to have what John Kerry has, am I wrong?
No.
But there seems to be, it seems to be that if I say, you know what I want to do? I want to get to a point where I have $188.3 million in net worth. I'm greedy. And I should be.
That's definitely different than saying if I'm going to get to $187 million, that along the way I paid the government 3% more each year along the way.
Just do me a favor. Tell me
the simplest explanation.
Do me a favor and tell me what endeavors John Kerry. What was his enterprise to become that wealthy?
He went to war. He came back as a congressman. He married into wealth.
Okay, he married into it. So he has not labored diligently to have this lifestyle. He diddled his way into it.
But he's still going to pay taxes on any income.
No, actually, hold on, sir. Wasn't it John Kerry that tried to evade the taxes on his yacht by docking it in Rhode Island?
Yeah, I live here. But
why didn't he voluntarily park that yacht in Massachusetts and willingly pay that tax?
It was not only a yacht, but to be fair, if I had a yacht, I'd rather park it in Newport than Boston. But he avoided the taxes. His initial instinct was to avoid the taxes. Newport, Rhode Island is gorgeous. Well, it's one of the great.
That's not the point, sir. He's the senator from Massachusetts. He's not the senator from Rhode Island. He's the senator from Massachusetts, and he chose not to benefit his state's economy with the docking of his yacht. It's like when Debbie Wasserman Schultz said if it were up to all the Republicans running for Congress, we'd all be driving foreign cars. She drives an Infiniti.
I'm not there to talk about any of those other things other than the fact that, that's like pointing out that President Bush 1 is from Texas, but he had a vacation home in Kennebunkport, Maine. He should have stayed down and it's not apples and apples.
But George W. Bush wasn't avoiding taxes. He didn't choose to go to a neighboring state. It wasn't like Texas has a yacht tax and Louisiana doesn't, so he chose to dock his yacht in the crescent of New Orleans. But that was John Kerry's initial instinct was to avoid the taxes. But what I'm getting at here is the lifestyle thing. They're saying that some people can afford to pay more. Well, what do you mean by that? I want concrete numbers and concrete answers instead of these vague proletariat bourgeois class warfare lines. I want to know what a fair share is defined by. I want to know what the origin of debt is. I want to know how much of somebody's lifestyle have you decided that they can give up while maintaining your own. I want to know what middle class means.
If 36.5%. I don't know who decided that was the okay number, but to be honest with you here, I'm hovering around that 250 line, and I'm not interested in paying 3% more. However, it isn't as if people would argue that it was if they want to raise someone's taxes 10% or 15% or 20%. The reality is we're yelling and screaming over 3% here.
Let's turn this around. What do I get if I pay 3% more in taxes? Do I get 3% more services?
I don't know how many. To be honest with you,
no. Do I get three? If I go to the grocery store and a pound of potatoes is $1, and I give them $2, I get 2 pounds of potatoes. If I give 3% more of my income to government, do I get 3% more services?
The answer would be yes, if the 3% of money that you gave the government was utilized properly, because it would make the value of the dollar more, and as the value of the dollar increases, those people who have dollars, their value increases, and the cost of goods goes down.
Are there any functions of the federal? Are there any functions of the federal government that are illegitimate?
Sure.
Okay, but we're not talking about cutting those, are we?
No, that's not necessarily true. I mean, a lot of the conversation is about cutting. They just can never cut anything. But if you're going to cut,
no, what they're talking about is proposed. Hold on, they're talking about cuts to proposed spending. Can you define that?
Yeah, it's a fake number. That's stuff that we're not spending money on right now.
Okay, so the hard cuts.
Money on moving forward.
So what we got in this debt deal was spend now, promise to cut proposed spending later. So
I'm not calling about the debt deal. That I don't necessarily agree with it. It sounds like a sham, more of the same, or things along those lines. What I'm calling about is when you're bringing the point that John Kerry's wealthy and he doesn't have the right to demand more tax or ask for more taxes, you're not clearly explaining it. You did a better job in your conversation to me, but to your general audience.
No, my general audience is sick and tired of somebody with $188 million saying that the rest of us don't do enough. John Kerry can empty 90% of his bank account and still be wildly wealthy. John Kerry can give up 90% of his unearned wealth and still be wealthy. The problem that I have, that I'm trying to explain here, is that there's a huge difference between taxes on income, on salary, on wages, on capital gains, and profits, versus the static pie argument, which gets blurred when progressives start talking. The assumption is if there's really rich people, in order for those people to be really rich, other people have to be really poor, right?
No, not necessarily. There is a way that everybody could be not poor, as long as everybody was willing to work and have a job.
But as long as the government is subsidizing idleness, they're not going to get jobs. When the government says, well, look, the illegal Mexicans are doing the jobs Americans won't do, they won't do it because the wages paid for work is equivalent to the wages of welfare. If you can either pick fruit or sit on your ass all day and get the same amount of money, what are you going to do?
Well, I need something to do, so I'm going to work.
Okay, well, that's fine.
That's one of the reasons why I'm not on welfare, right? And I'm not making minimum wage. I understand your point, but that's all tax policy. That's all very different than this dopey debt deal.
But you're missing the point that when they talk about a millionaire or a billionaire, and they say no one below 250 is going to pay any tax increases, how much is $250,000 compared to $1 million? And making $1 million a year doesn't make you a millionaire, sir.
I don't disagree with you on any of those points. In fact,
it's not a question 100%. Of whether you agree or disagree. These are facts. $250,000 is $750,000 less than $1 million. If your salary is $1 million a year, you're not a millionaire. No. And $250,000 in Boston and New York City is like $50,000. Right, but they're and so you're kind of now understanding that they're categorizing people who are nowhere close to being millionaires as millionaires, and then claiming they don't pay their fair share. And again, if I give you $10 and you go out and spend $13 and then blame me for your $3 deficit, how is that my fault, sir?
It isn't. And quite frankly, I'm not for more taxes, but I'm actually for more taxes on everybody.
Yeah, but 47% of working Americans don't pay any taxes. So before you say, and I thank you for the call, somebody is not paying their fair share, you ought to be making people pay something before somebody else pays more. It's just sickening. This is more of a societal consistency. I don't want to hear class warfare rhetoric from John Kerry. I'm sick and tired of being told by John Kerry and other Democrats on this list that you and I haven't done our fair share. That there are all these people in need and we have to give the government more money to support that need when they have all the money that anyone could possibly dream of, and they want to hold on to their lifestyle. John Kerry is not going to sacrifice his lifestyle for principle. He's going to sacrifice your lifestyle for principle. It's putting other people's money where your mouth is. How can you stand there and demonize wealth while accumulating massive amounts of it and then claiming other people aren't doing enough? This is what's not understood here. This list, you look at this list, John Kerry, $188.3 million. Representative Jane Harmon from California, $152.6 million. Senator Jay Rockefeller of West Virginia, $81.5 million. Understand, this is the lowest baseline level. Representative Jared Polis of Colorado, 56.4. I forgot Mark Warner. Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, $70.1 million. Representative Jared Polis, 56.4. Senator Frank Lautenberg of New Jersey, 49.7. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, one of the most liberal senators, 46 million, almost even. Alan Grayson for 2010, 31.4 million. Nancy Pelosi, 21.7 million. These aren't people with a couple $100,000 in the bank and a 401k and a 4-bedroom house in the burbs. This is over the top wealth. This is the kind that when you hear this class warfare directed at these people who they paint as disgusting and greedy, how are these people not greedy then? How is it you progressives look at these people and you don't say they're greedy? You know what's amazing about progressives and the animosity, the class animosity that they drum up? Let's see. Okay, rich liberal Democrats in Washington, they're not greedy. Hollywood entertainers, they're not greedy. Professional athletes, they're not greedy. Touring, best-selling musicians, they're not greedy. No one on MSNBC is greedy. So who's greedy? Who's the greedy person? Well, the oil executive. Well, why is that? Well, because we don't know him. These are the people that are loved by the progressive left, so they can stay rich. It's everybody else you want to get. It's everybody else you want to get. Get them. See, you would think that if it was about the transfer of resources from the people who have it to the people who need it, there'd be progressives standing out in front of John Kerry's office saying, turn your resources into a social benefit. If currency and resources are publicly held, then how could John Kerry hold more than his fair share? Shouldn't he pay a 90% tax on his wealth? Shouldn't Nancy Pelosi pay a 40% tax on her wealth? Not her income, her wealth. This is the problem. The problem with the progressive movement is it's like a big stupid child. It's a baby Huey movement. It's Bobo and Little Devil from Nothing But Trouble with Demi Moore and Chevy Chase. I know that reference is really, really, really obscure, but it is so appropriate. It's a big dummy movement. The worst part is, and we talked about this with Representative Steve King of Iowa, that most liberals haven't really read the direct works of liberal philosophers. They've just gotten the watered-down version or the academic version or the Cliff Notes version or here's the soft and fuzzy side of Mao version.